So we're at the halfway point of the 2017 season for the Chicago Bears. Heading into their Week 9 bye, they sit at 3-5, last place in the NFC North. But we have seen some progress, we've seen some growth, and we've seen some improvement and some positive things out of this team so far this season. So here I am with my mid-season recap and review of this 2017 Chicago Bears season. And I'm going to start off with the positive because I think if you look, there are plenty of things to find that are a positive, that are good. I start off with the record. Even though they're 3-5, that's a losing record. They're 2-2 at home. So they're getting a little bit better about being viable and competitive at Soldier Field. And the 2 losses at Soldier Field were by a combined total of 9 points. So it's not like they were getting housed or boat raced at home. And you really think about it, you know, they should have beaten Atlanta at home. They had a chance to beat Minnesota at home. Those are their 2 home losses. Could just as easily be 4-0 at home, and talking about a team that is 5-3 as opposed to 2-2 at home with a 3-5 record. This is a team that's had a chance to win 6 of the 8 games that it's played in. You look at some of the victories they do have, beating Pittsburgh, beating Baltimore, beating Carolina, all teams with records 500 or better. You look at Pittsburgh in particular, there's an argument that could potentially be made that the way they're playing right now, they might be the best team in the AFC. Those are some decent victories for the Bears. Those are. And gives you some hope that, you know, things might finally be starting to get better. I look at the team from a talent standpoint on the offensive side of the ball. Jordan Howard is a franchise back for the Bears. You always have to be a little bit cautious after a rookie year where a guy plays really, really well, because year 2, does he get hurt? Year 2, does he not progress? Year 2, do teams watch more film and start to figure him out? Well, Jordan Howard's on pace for 1,300 rushing yards. He's got over 660 rushing yards right now, which is incredibly impressive considering the situation that he is in. Knowing that this team is scared of their quarterback play, knowing that this team struggles to move the ball vertically on the outside, the receivers aren't very good. The fact that Jordan Howard can put up these type of numbers in this type of situation, dude is a franchise back, period. He is the building block for that offense. It's true. But you really look for the positives. You look on the defensive side of the ball, where you would expect with John Fox and Vic Fangio that this would be the strength of the team, and it most certainly is. Look at Akeem Hicks. They gave him money at the start of the season, and all he's done is respond and played like a beast. To me, clearly a Pro Bowl player this year with his 7 sacks. He's just been a consistent threat and a consistent force, which is especially impressive considering the 3-4 scheme that he plays in is not always conducive for those defensive ends putting up big numbers. But through 8 games, he has 7 sacks, and like I say, he's been a consistent force for this Bears defense all season long. I look at their secondary, and I look at Adrian Amos. You know, he's been a force against the run. He's improving in coverage, and he's starting to make some big plays. I know the analytics guys like Pro Football Focus view Amos as playing at an elite level this year. I wouldn't go that far, but he's playing at a very, very good level, and it's been nice progress to see in his 3rd season in the NFL, whereas I thought he was kind of a weakness of this defense heading into this season. He's a guy that you got to start thinking about extending and keeping around long term. I look at Kyle Fuller, you know, a guy that honestly his Bears run the first 3 years was mostly a disappointment. The 14th overall pick in the 2014 draft. Showed some flashes early in his rookie season, but injuries and just mediocre to bad play. The Bears did not pick up his 5th-year option on his rookie deal because they didn't want to guarantee it for injury, and frankly, he hadn't deserved it. Well, Kyle Fuller has come out and played really, really well this year. One of the unsung heroes of this Bears defense and one of the more underrated defensive players, in my opinion, in the league this year. He leads the team in passes defended. He's playing very well in coverage, and when you watch the games as the season goes along, receivers are having a really tough time beating him for big plays. And sometimes they're having a really, really tough time getting open on him at all. And even if they make some catches, they have to make some tough catches because Kyle Fuller is in their grill. He has turned a corner in his career and really put the onus on the Bears to think about having to keep him around long term. And that's been a good thing to see. And then I look at last year's first-round pick, Leonard Floyd. He's got 5 sacks. And to me, he just always seems to be around the action. He's a great athlete with length and speed and athleticism. And he's really learning how to play the outside linebacker position. I still feel like his best football is ahead of him, but I always sit there when I'm watching the Bears games and always seem to find Leonard Floyd. Not because I'm looking for him, but because he's there. He seems to be in the midst of the action. He seems to be around the plays, and he makes some plays. So when you look at this, you start to see the makings of what could potentially be, in the future, a very, very good defense for the Chicago Bears organization. Looking at this 2017 draft class, you've got, obviously, the draft class is ultimately going to be about Mitchell Trubisky, but now he's got 4 starts under his belt. Returns are mixed, frankly. Some on him, a lot not. I would have liked to have seen more impressive things, but still early. Adam Shaheen, he really hasn't had much of an opportunity, but now with the injury to Zach Miller, should force him into action more. Eddie Jackson has been solid as a rookie at the one safety position, and he's made some big plays, most notably getting his Mike Brown on during the Carolina game. Tariq Cohen has been a bit of a revelation, the tiny, diminutive, human joystick type of back from North Carolina A&T. He's had some big moments early on in this season. You look at this 2017 draft class, and you say, if they can get something out of Shaheen and they can get Trubisky to grow and develop, even with the limited amount of players they got out of that draft, they could have found some guys that could really help them for years to come. And in general, when talking about recent drafts for the Bears, in so many previous years, the problem has been, as so many of these guys don't make the team, they don't make an impact, and they're not there very long. You see 2016 first-round pick Leonard Floyd is making an impact. You see 2014 first-round pick Kyle Fuller is finally starting to make an impact. A fifth-round pick like Adrian Amos from 2015 is making an impact. Jordan Howard, last year's fifth-round pick, is making a big impact. You know, and you look at guys like Eddie Jackson and Tariq Cohen and what type of opportunities guys like Shaheen and Trubisky could potentially take advantage of. You're starting to see a Bears team that's getting a couple of guys out of each draft class to contribute. And even with the disappointments of 2015 first-round pick Kevin White, you've got guys like Eddie Goldman that play well, and Cody Whitehair, if you're not putting him in the shotgun snap situation, plays pretty well. This is a team that's doing a little bit better in terms of the draft. They're not all the way there, but it's better than it has been in recent years under Emery and Angelo, that's for damn sure. Now, with all that hope and positivity, let's talk about some of the negatives that kind of go back down to reality. 4 games of the Mike Glennon experience was frankly 4 games too many. It was ridiculous that this coaching staff really honestly looked at it and thought Mike Glennon was that much better than Trubisky that you had to play him right away. That comes down to not being involved in the process of drafting Trubisky, not agreeing with the decision, an organization that paid a bunch of money to Glennon. It kind of speaks to the head coach and the offensive coaching staff believing that Mike Glennon was the better option, which should really honestly tell you all that you should know. And in those 4 games with Mike Glennon, they were 1-3. The 4 games with Trubisky as a starter, they're 2-2. And they haven't even really given Trubisky much of an opportunity. Looking at the injuries to Kevin White and Cameron Meredith, those are the 2 guys you're expecting to be the top 2 options outside. The Bears haven't had either one of them. Meredith with his knee injury in the preseason, Kevin White getting hurt in game number 1 because of course he would get hurt in game damn number 1. And just in general, the lack of skill talent outside. Regardless if it's Glennon or Trubisky, it is really, really hard to be a successful passer on the Chicago Bears team with the lack of talent that they have on the outside, which then doesn't make it much of a surprise that this team has struggled to score points consistently, move the ball consistently. They've had 1 game on offense out of 8 where they scored 20 points or more. And I don't care how much your defense is improving, your defense is growing, your defense is getting better. Ultimately, you're not even going to be close to thinking about the playoffs until your offense can start putting up more than 20 points consistently, period. And the Bears just can't for a variety of reasons. You had 2 blowout losses to Tampa Bay and Green Bay. The Green Bay one could be understandable because over the years the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have just had the Bears' number. The Tampa Bay one looks particularly terrible. Now, some of that could be attributed to the Bucs had 2 weeks to prepare for the Bears because of the hurricane. The Bucs' first game was canceled where the Bears had to go play a tough game against the Falcons. But with the Bucks now being 2-5, that blowout loss to them looks really, really bad in the grand scheme of things. The offensive play calling, for the most part, I think has been incredibly conservative, incredibly chicken shit, and just flat out bad. Far too often this team is running on first down, running on second down, putting themselves in a lot of third and long situations, and just overall being very predictable, making it easy for defenses to game plan because they know 80 to 90% of the time, if it's first and second down, this team is running the football. They're stacking the box, and you're putting Trubisky in a situation where you're demonstrating not a lot of confidence in him. So if you don't show a lot of confidence in him, or any confidence in him at all, frankly, why should this kid have to go out there and demonstrate confidence on the football field? That's just ridiculous. And at some point in time in the NFL, you have to take risks. You have to take chances. You cannot always play it so close to the vest, especially when you know you have an offense that struggles to score points, especially when you know you have a defense that is playing relatively well, but is not a top-shelf elite defense yet. This is not a team that consistently can win games yet by shutting people down defensively and running the ball and controlling the clock. They just can't do it. They have to take more chances and more risk on the offensive side of the ball because ultimately, even if you go through this whole season with Trubisky getting 12 stars, you really haven't developed him for shit if you're not putting him in any positions to where he could show his stuff or not show his stuff, giving him the best chances to succeed. The Bears and their offensive play calling put him in bad situations, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. I also look at the negatives from a big picture standpoint. This team is winning too many games to get a super high pick. They're probably going to finish somewhere between 5-11 and 7-9. So that might get him a pick in the top 10, but it won't get him a pick in the top 3 or top 5. And I'm sorry, I'd like to be in that type of position because especially if teams start falling in love with certain quarterbacks, you know the Bears aren't going to be in a position to draft a quarterback. That might put them in a position to trade down and accumulate some future picks or additional picks, which they really, really need to do. They're winning too many games to do that at this point. And then my other concern is long-term, this organization has to move on from John Fox. Because this organization, its success or failure in the years to come, is going to revolve around Mitchell Trubisky, not John Fox in that defense. And John Fox, Dowell Loggins, they are the wrong people to have entrusted with developing your young quarterback, your second overall pick, Mitchell Trubisky. And my concern is this Bears team wins 6-7 games, that there's going to be enough thought that there was progress that maybe next year with another year of off-season work and camp and preseason and the regular season that Trubisky might develop and this team might be in the playoff mix. And it's just fantasy at this point. They can't keep John Fox and Dowell Loggins in this offensive coaching staff. They just can't. Because if they continue to keep Trubisky in this type of environment, they are going to royally screw this kid up. And he is ultimately going to bust out. And at that point in time, you will end up eventually having to fire these guys anyways, not named Vic Fangio. And you will ultimately be looking for another young quarterback, which frankly you've been doing for decades. So the biggest negative of all when it comes down to it is they're winning too many games to get a super high pick. And ultimately, they're winning too many games to where it might leave open the possibility that John Fox could return in 2018 and this offensive coaching staff could return. And if they do, that could ultimately potentially be disaster for Mitchell Trubisky in the Chicago Bears organization.